Welcome everybody. My name is Anthony Verona. I'm the Culinary Director for University Hospitals Health System with Sodexo, and welcome to my food presentation today. Today's going to be a great recipe. We're going to be talking about pasta alla Pomodoro with pasta and chicken. So what is Pomodoro? Pomodoro is just a tomato sauce, a quick tomato sauce, typically served with some sort of pasta, and that's what we're going to make here today. So this presentation is going to take about 15-20 minutes. So what are you going to learn today? Let me look at my notes because there's a lot of stuff you're going to learn today. First of all, we're going to learn how to tenderize our meat. In the recipe, it talks about pounding it. I already did that because it's kind of messy, but I want to mention when you do pound it, make sure that you clean your surface before and after because we're dealing with raw poultry, so we want to make sure everything's sanitized when we're done. So I did that beforehand, otherwise I'd have to clean up, but I'm going to show you that and talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to show you how to make a concasse. What is a concasse? Well, that's basically a tomato that's blanched, seeded, and diced up and peeled. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you how to blanch, which is another term we're going to teach you, boil in water, and then we're going to show you how to shock it in ice water. So blanch, shock, concasse are a couple different things. We're going to show you how to sear properly, how to sear a piece of meat. It's really important. There's a French term called the Maillard reaction, and that's where when you add heat to a protein and the sugars come out and it caramelizes, that's where you get a ton of flavor. And you'll notice in our ingredients today, very minimal ingredients. We probably have 6-7 ingredients. So how do we maximize our flavor with limited ingredients? We're going to talk about that, and searing's one way. We're also going to talk about reduction, which is huge, and this is all about the flavor. So we have some chicken stock, we got a little bit of wine. We just don't want to throw that in the pan and let it sit there and simmer. We do want it to simmer, but we want it to reduce. Typically when we add a lick, we want it to reduce by about half, okay? And that's going to add a lot of flavor, and it's going to reduce and concentrate the flavor. That's why we don't add a lot of salt at the beginning, and we use low sodium chicken broth or homemade chicken broth with no sodium or salt in it. That way when we do have that reduction, obviously in a reduction, the water evaporates, but the salt doesn't, right? In France, that's how you get sea salt. They flood little valleys with seawater, it dehydrates, and what do you have left over is this crystallized sea salt. So when we reduce and evaporate the water, obviously the salt does not reduce. So let's get started real quick with our pasta alla Pomodoro with chicken. So first of all, I want to show you a couple little techniques. We have some Roma tomatoes here. Could you use diced tomatoes? Of course, in a can, no problem. A lot fresher. I think it has a ton of flavor, a lot more flavor than a canned tomato, but by all means, if you just have canned tomatoes, not a problem. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab about, and these are Roma tomatoes. If you can find San Marzano or even regular round tomatoes, not a big deal, but I prefer Roma tomatoes. They're a lot meatier. The wall of the meat is just a little bit bigger. So what I like to do is we have some boiling water already going, and we want to get this in because we're going to cook our pasta here in a minute. So I'm going to take a little bit of a paring knife, and we're going to do all this prep in front of you today. I really didn't do too much. So what did I do? I just took the stem out, and I scored the bottom. Let's do that again, okay? Just taking the stem out and scoring the bottom. Let's do that to all of these. Okay, if you see a little piece in there that doesn't look too great, not too bad. And let's score the bottom. Why do we do that? We're going to drop this in boiling water for literally 30 seconds, and that's going to help us peel off the skin, okay? When we cook tomatoes and you didn't take the skin off, those skins don't break down. I'm not going to use that one. Those skins do not break down, and what's going to end up happening is you get these little flaky pieces of skin in your sauce, and that's not very appealing. On canned tomatoes, they typically will seed them and peel them. So we're going to do that real quick. Okay, I'm going to take these tomatoes, watch this, drop them in boiling water. If your tomatoes are really ripe, it takes less. If they're really unripe, then it takes a little bit more. But literally, I drop them in there. I'm going to wait, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, maybe 15 seconds. Just give it a little stir. Obviously, I dropped the tomatoes in there. They were cold from the refrigerator, so it dropped the temperature a little bit, but I'm still getting some good boiling going on. I might look at one real quick. By the way, I have some ice water here. Okay, that's perfect. I have some ice water. Look, how long was that? 15, 20 seconds. I'm going to drop this in ice water. Why do we drop it in ice water? Because if you don't, that's going to stop the cooking process. And if we don't drop it in ice water, then the meat is going to get a little mushy, and we don't want that. So I'm going to stir that around for a second. Now, I'm using the same water. Why boil more water? We got pasta here. Let's cook that. Typically, pasta takes about 10, 15 minutes to boil. So I want to make sure, or I'm sorry, 10 to 12 minutes to boil. I'm going to put this in here. It's come back up to a boil, just so we have enough time for the end so we can plate and present this. We're going to drop our pasta, and that's cavatappi pasta, but you can use any type of pasta you want. You could use linguine or penne or whole wheat, or you could even put this over rice or whatever. So I'm going to give that a quick stir. Okay, let's bring this over here, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. Let's pull this out. I'm going to take my paring knife, and see the way I did that little notch? I'm going to pull this skin right off. Look at that, comes right off. Now what we have is a peeled tomato. I'm going to put this on my cutting board. I'm going to kind of burn through this real quick, but look at that, it comes right off. And I tell you right now, I know you can't feel this tomato, but the meat and the flesh is still very firm, and that's what we really want. We want to be able to cook this in the pan with the garlic and other aromatics that we're going to cut up here in a minute. We don't want to cook it in the boiling water and make it mush, right? So we're going to peel this real quick. And for this dish, we're making about 4 servings, so we probably only need about 4 or 5 tomatoes. You can see that's coming off pretty good. Obviously these skins, and we're going to seed these in a minute. These skins are, you know, compost or throw away, whatever you do in your home. But you can see that comes off really nice. Like I said, if they're a little underripe, it's going to take a little bit longer in that water, but these are pretty ripe tomatoes. So real quick it comes off. And you can see how if you cook these skins, look at that, that's going to be tough and very unappealing when you go to eat it. So, you know, when you go to a restaurant, you know, a lot of people obviously using canned tomatoes, but some good, real nice restaurants are going to take the time to do this. And it makes all the difference in the final product. So let me move this out of the way. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take this tomato, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to cut all of them in half. And then what we're going to do, bring our bowl back over and just give this a quick squeeze. We want to get some of this juice out, not all of it, but we want to get some of those seeds out. And you don't have to be too careful with it. You just want some of that stuff out. Okay, as I'm doing this, I'm going to heat up my pan because we're going to start making, look at this, look at this. We're really cooking here. Turn that down, keep that from boiling over. There are starches inside the pasta, so as those starches boil, they kind of foam up. Okay, let me wash my hands real quick. All right, and we're back. Let's turn on. I'm going to go with two different pots or pans today. Actually, we're going to do it over here. So what we want to do first, and I'm going to show you this chicken. And I'm going to keep this chicken over here because I don't want to contaminate all my stuff I got, even though everything's going to be cooked. So I'm going to heat up my pans just a minute here, and then we're going to add the olive oil. But I want to show you what I did with these chickens. Chicken breast. Can you see that? So what I did is I pounded these. They're chicken breasts. I trimmed them. I got all the skin and little gristle off. So I pounded them. I seasoned them with rosemary and a little lemon juice, and then I dredged them in a little flour. Now, we're at Dave's here today. I actually just had some whole wheat flour, no big deal. You can use regular flour. Again, I'm just touching this pasta real quick, make sure it's cooking all right and it's still a little firm. So I got my pans heating up. So again, a little bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, some lemon juice, and some rosemary, and a little bit of oregano in the marinade. And then I dredged it in a little bit of flour. And that's going to help give us a nice crust. Now remember what I talked about before about building flavor. This is the key right here. You go out to a restaurant and you're like, wow, how can that chicken breast taste so good? Well, I'm going to show you right here. High heat, right? And a little bit of seasoning, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to put this in. Watch how I'm going to put this in. I'm pushing it away from me, right? Because you don't want this, if you put it towards you, you're going to splash that oil. So I push it away from me. If that oil goes, it goes on the stovetop and not on myself. Okay? I like to work. All right, I just touched raw chicken, so excuse me, let me make sure I go wash my hands. Okay, you always got to wash your hands when you're done working with raw chicken. Okay, so now I'm going to get these going. This is the key to do this chicken first, all right? So I'm going to move these around. Boy, I wish you could smell it. I can smell that rosemary. So I got this heating up. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, let me flip these right away. I want to leave them here as long as I possibly can, and I'm going to show you when to flip it. The chicken's going to tell you when to flip it, okay? Now we're really cooking here, so I want to keep an eye on my pasta. The other thing I didn't mention is al dente. What's al dente? It's an Italian term for to the tooth, right? Some people like their pasta cooked a little bit more. I like it al dente. So you want, not a crunch, but you got to be a little, I'd like it to be a little firm, but not too much, okay? And that's still got some time to go. I just touched it, I can tell. Okay. So can you hear that? Sautéing. What's sautéing? Sautéing in French is actually meaning to jump. So you can see this jumping up here. So I'm going to let that go. As that's going, and I can see it starting to brown, I'm just going to put a rough dice, a rough chop on these tomatoes that we just peeled. Okay? Because we're going to put these tomatoes in the pan with some onions and some garlic and stuff like that. Really good aromatics when we're done. Because this is going to be our quick sauce, our Pomadoro sauce, okay? So I can hear it. Now I'm going to show you what's going on with this chicken. I don't know if you can see it. I might bring it over here to Robert a little bit. But there's some moisture and some proteins coming up, right? That's when you know you're almost there. And I see it on one piece of chicken, but not the other yet. And I can also look at the edges of the chicken. The edges right here around look like they're starting to get brown. You want some nice color. Color's flavor. That's that Maillard reaction I talked about. You want it to sear and brown. Not only is that going to help with the chicken, but it's going to leave these little bits and pan in the bottom of the pan, and that's going to add a ton of flavor as well. Okay? So I think we're ready to flip over here. And I want you to see this color. Look at that. Look at that. Okay? That's what you're looking for. Beautifully brown, golden brown. I'm going to flip that over and let those go just a little bit longer. I'm going to stir my pasta. I want to give a little, it's almost there. Not quite yet. The thing about pasta, if it's a little underdone and you shut it off now, by the time we're done, the pasta will be perfect. So I'm going to give this another minute. Remind me out there, because I'll forget, to shut this off, and we'll leave it in the water just for a minute. You can't leave it in there forever, but we're going to leave it in there just for a minute, and then the pasta will be perfectly cooked. Okay? All right. Now at this point, we got a nice brown on the outside. I'm going to turn this down just a little. Oh, I didn't tell you, I had this flame on about medium high. Not blazing as hot as I can get it, but about medium high. Okay? So now what I like to do is take my thermometer. If you don't have an instant read thermometer, go get you one. They're like $7 at the supermarket. Not a big deal. I'm going to stick it in there, and what do I get? 165 degrees is what I'm looking for, and it's about 168, okay? So I'm going to pull these out. I'm gonna set these right here. Remember, we pounded these. Take this off the heat. Oh, you guys didn't remember. I'm turning off the pasta. I'm gonna put these right here and let these rest just a minute. Now what I have here, look at these little bits and pieces in here, okay? I'm gonna take this off the heat because I don't want that to burn. I have my tomatoes here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of an onion. You just need a little bit. You could use onion, you could use shallot. I like just a little bit of onion. You can use red onion. And we just want to put just a fine little dice on this. Remember, we're making 4 portions. We got 2 pans. I still have my stove tops on, going good. Now we're going to put this in. Just a little fine dice. Okay, now, when I saute my, I don't want to put my garlic in yet. I'm going to put just a tad bit more olive oil, maybe 2 teaspoons olive oil. I'm going to put my onion in. My pan is already hot. I want to soften my onions first before I put my garlic in, because I want the garlic not to burn. And I'm not really looking for a lot of color, a lot of caramelization on these onions. I just want them to soften, okay? Let me look at my recipe real quick. Okay. Yep. So add the onions. They're starting to soften a little bit again. I still have it on medium high. Look what's happening. You can see some brown bits coming off of there. This is what we're looking for. That chicken left some bits, so I want to kind of scrape it off. That's called fond, F-O-N-D. It's, again, another French term. Those little bits that are left on. Now I'm going to add my garlic. About a teaspoon to each one. Remember, we're making 4 servings, but in 2 pans. I just want to stir that around. Okay, at this point, we're going to add our tomatoes. This is when I crank it up, all the way high. Oh, I just turned it off. All the way high, because we're going to add these wet tomatoes. Here we go. Now it's going to stop the cooking process of the onions and garlic, which is good, because if you feel like your garlic's getting a little too dark, this will stop it, because we're adding all that liquid. And I like that juice. That juice is fine. All right, but I want it high heat. High heat. I want the moisture to come out, but I want it to reduce quick. If you don't have enough high heat, what happens is all that moisture comes out and then it takes forever to reduce down. So I can tell you right now, I'm looking at it and there's moisture coming out, but as it's coming out, it's evaporating. The other thing is I'm getting this tomato-y kind of, remember how we did the chicken with the fond on the bottom? I'm kind of getting that here too. It's starting to reduce and getting a lot of flavor. Remember what I said at the beginning about building flavors? This is how we're building flavors, by reduction. We still have some chicken stock we're gonna add. At this point, we're gonna add just a little bit of black pepper and just a little bit of salt, not a lot. You can always season later. So I'm stirring, you can see there's not a lot of moisture in there. This sauce isn't like a grandma's tomato sauce on Sunday, right? It's that Pomadoro, it's that fresh tomatoes, okay? Remember, I got my heat on high. Yeah, I'm making a little bit of a mess, but hey, we're really cooking here, right? Okay, now, I got a little bit of wine. A little bit of white wine I add. See what I'm doing? I'm letting that reduce. I put in about 1/8 of a cup in each one. I'm letting it reduce by half, just by visual, okay? Looks like half by me. Remember, I got this on high heat, okay? Now I'm gonna add my chicken stock. I'm gonna let this go just a minute longer. While that's going and reducing, I'm gonna chop up my fresh rosemary. This is one of the key ingredients in this. This is gonna add a ton of flavor. I just wanna put a rough chop on here. And then some fresh oregano. And I don't want to add this until the very end, but I want to get this going. Okay, I see that's reduced. This is when I add some lemon. I already seeded these lemons out. So just a couple lemons on here. Maybe one little in each one. Okay. Lemon and tomatoes love each other. Now I'm going to add my stock. Look at this. See the edges? I'm getting that brownness. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some brown. It's reduced. I'm going to add my chicken stock. And I'm going to let that go. Okay, now, I don't want it to reduce all the way because I want a little bit of sauce in there. All right, we're almost ready to plate up here. My pasta is going to be perfect. Now, key to pasta. When you're done cooking it, bear with me. It's hot. Don't drain it. Let me turn this down a little bit. Now is when I want to stop this reduction. Not stop, but just reduce it down just a little bit. Okay, so I got my pasta here. Don't drain it. I like to drain it in here. I want some of that water. I don't want a ton of it, but I want some of it. Okay, so now I'm going to add my pasta here. Drain it, drain it. Okay, that looks like enough. Just a little bit. I want to cook this pasta in this sauce. What's that going to do? It's going to impart all this saucy flavor into this pasta. A lot of people I see, they make pasta sauce and they'll just put pasta on a plate and then they'll top it with the pasta sauce. That's not me. I like to saute it in with the sauce. You try this at home, you're going to notice a huge difference. It's just going to be, if you put the sauce on top of the pasta, that's all you have is sauce on top of pasta. This, you're going to have the sauce almost incorporated into the pasta itself. So here I go. I'm going to do this for about 2-3 minutes. Okay, let that go. Remember, my chicken's cooked. This is when I'm going to add my rosemary, my oregano. And now I'm going to check for seasoning. Toss this all together. This is done. Let me check for seasoning. It's going to be hot. Okay, perfect. No salt or pepper needed. Chicken's done. You can do a couple things with this chicken. You could serve it as is, whole like that, or you can cut it up, make a nice little presentation. Since I'm going to be handling ready to eat foods, I want to put a glove on, just because I like to. Let me put this glove on, put my thermometer back, and then we're going to do a little presentation here. So the pasta, I don't know, you probably can't really see it that well, but that sauce the pasta has just sucked up that sauce. Okay. At this point, you could add a little Parmesan cheese if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that today. No big deal. Okay. Take this chicken. Again, you could cut it in just little. This would be for, a party. People don't need to take a whole piece of chicken. And then I want to show you if you want to just individually. I mean, look at the juice in that chicken. Can you see that? Look how moist that is. That's from the proper cooking and how we seared it. Okay. Beautiful. We're gonna add a little sprig of rosemary just to emphasize that we have rosemary in there. And there's that. And then if we want to plate this up individually, we can do that as well. And again, I used cavatappi pasta here today, whatever pasta you want. Give it a little fan that just gives it a little extra presentation. And there we go. One family style, one individual. So I hope you learned something today. Learned how to, really get a lot of flavor out of the chicken. Chicken breasts can tend to be a little bit flavorless. I wish you were here today to taste it. We're going to have a little bite of it here after this, but thanks for joining us, and thanks a lot. Take care.